Hello and welcome to Old World Fanatics. Today we'll introduce ourselves and the show and run through our time at Castle Assault 6th edition Warhammer tournament. Enjoy. Welcome to our first ever episode of Old World Fanatics. My name's Gommo. Other people call me Colin. This is a new podcast we kicked off. Basically a show where we're going to discuss all things Warhammer Fantasy as this build up to the release of the Old World is kicking on now. I think we're all getting pretty excited about it. But in the meantime, before the release, we're heads down into, at the moment, Warhammer 6th edition, which seems like most of the Warhammer community is. But I'm sure we're going to touch other things in the show, maybe even army projects, 8th edition. Look, we're hoping that we're going to cover things like battle reports, tournaments, army book reviews, a lot of hobby stuff, and even some lore. So I wanted to just intro myself quickly, but also hand over to the actual two gentlemen on the show, Josh and Andrew. So yeah, Josh, did you want to just introduce yourself?
I'm just like you, Colin. I'm keen to get into all this stuff. I love Warhammer, and following 6th this year has been great. And keenly following the old world. Hopefully, it turns out to be something lots of fun. The sooner it comes out, the better.
And Andrew?
Yeah. Just like both of you, I suppose I've been playing Warhammer for going back, since almost a kid. Well, I was a kid. In all its different formats until, unfortunately, as we all know, it got blown up. And then kind of continued playing in a few of the community made formats afterwards, and recently delved back into 6th, which was actually it was quite a bit of fun.
Yeah, cool, man. That's a little bit of background. I might just backtrack on us too, and just a little bit of how we got in. It might be just listeners, first episode. You guys probably don't know who we are. Basically, I mean, the three of us met. We're basically. I think, are we all originally from Newcastle or not really?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I am, but you
You
two
are.
aren't. Okay, but we met in Newcastle, Australia,
We did.
not in the UK one. And that was probably around the 8th edition, I guess, height of 8th edition, I guess, at Newcastle Legions Club. Like Andrew just said, obviously the whole thing, let's not talk about that, but yeah, it disappeared. And I guess the cool thing is it seems like you both have left Newcastle and then Andrew's made his way back. Josh still hasn't yet, but but we did.
I do miss the weather, I must admit.
I bet. Yeah, he's down in Melbourne, chilly Melbourne,
Yeah.
rainy Melbourne. No, but look, basically how we started this was we went to a Castle Assault tournament, 6th edition Castle Assault, a week and a half ago. And then outside of that, we decided, hang on, we're both back into it a little. Well, look, three of us are back into it a bit. Why don't we start a podcast? So that's how we kicked into this, I guess. Andrew sort of gave a bit of background there. Josh, how long have you been playing, and how did you even get into this in the first place?
When I first started, I would have been, I don't know, year 5 or year 6, primary school.
And you're in year 9 now? How old are you now?
No. Yeah, it was just a couple of years ago. So it would have been tail end of 5th edition, going into early 6th edition. Played it for a few years. It was really the starter set of the 5th edition starter set with the Bretts and the Lizardmen.
Yes. That's why you're a Bretonnian player.
Oh, that's where I started. I actually traded the Lizardmen half with a friend who gave me the Bretonians as well. So I just ended up with all these knights. It was great.
Night buses everywhere.
Have you got any of those original figures still in your army?
Yes.
Like is that little man the archers or anything? Or?
Yes, I still got all of them. I never got rid of them. So I stopped playing for about 12 years, like at the end of secondary school up until the mid 2010s. And I almost sold them about a year before I got back into it. But I held on to them, and they have actually come in handy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I've really found it again. Coming out to Newcastle, and just followed fantasy from that point on.
In the I guess after when did 8th finish? When was that? 2017 or something?
2017, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Did
16,
you?
maybe. Maybe
Yeah.
16.
Did you do a
Yeah.
lot? You did a bit of 9th age, and then did you do anything
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, I
Or
followed 9th for a while, and then I found it just got more and more unfamiliar, less Warhammery, less random, and
yeah.
I just didn't feel the same sort of level of theatrics, I suppose would be the way to describe it.
Yeah.
So then I tried Age of Sigmar for a while. Didn't really. I found that the power creep and all the new books coming out was a bit too much to deal with. So then I tried Lord of the Rings, and I tried War
Oh
Master,
wow.
and then Lord of the Rings was fun.
So you have been gaming this whole time, though, really, and
Yeah,
hobbying at least. Yeah.
yeah, definitely hobbying. That's probably what I spend most of my time doing. Really, is painting and doing the terrain and that kind of thing more than anything. But yeah, I never dropped it. I was just trying to find a system to focus on again. And then when I heard CanCon had runners running 6, it actually had a War Master tournament as well, and I was sort of I
Oh,
wasn't
I'm
sure.
and
Yeah, I was having an ahhing. I mean, I couldn't resist the nostalgia of 6. I hadn't played 6th edition since I was 16. I was
Yeah.
like, I've been playing the 6th edition Bretonnia book right through 8th, and I was like, let's see how it goes in 6th edition. And I had no idea actually
Let's use it
how
in its
different it
truest
was.
form. Is
How
that?
different it felt in 6th edition when I got to CanCon. I hadn't played any warm up games. I just went to CanCon and just played it, and I was like, oh, okay, this army's very different. But yeah, so I ended
Oh,
up playing
yeah.
a range of stuff up to this year.
Wow, no,
Um,
that's pretty impressive. Oh, sorry,
no,
are you
go.
going?
No, I'm done.
No, I was just about to say, yeah, I started in well, I'll say I started in 3rd because 4th hadn't come out, but like I didn't play because I was like 12 or something, and I had about 5 figures, and I just was like, cool, what's this book? And then 4th came out, and so that was my high school years, 4th and 5th edition. I remember that
What year was
heaps.
that? Third and fourth when you started?
Mm.
Oh, so 19. Oh, well, 3rd was already out
Yeah.
because it was out in like 88 or so, I can't remember. So it would have been 91 or something,
Yeah,
92,
yeah.
91, something like that. And to be honest, maybe 4th was even out, but it wasn't. I mean, there was one shop here that sold anything. And if you
Yeah,
were
yeah.
lucky, there was a book there. And they used to pull the boxes apart. Do you remember that? Like the shops used to pull everything apart and sell it all.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Oh,
before.
not in ours, but I do. It
Yeah,
was
well,
very,
Frontline Hobbies did, which was
yeah.
good. It was the only way you could get figures because it was too expensive.
Well, that's it. It would have been very expensive. I remember that one thing about earlier editions, buying those medals, especially as a kid. It was just the
Mm.
price, wasn't it?
Oh god, yeah. You get like one blister pack or two, and that was your unit of about 5 or 6 things. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and then 6 came. That was university, and then I think like most people, that family, like you meet girls and you get married and you have kids,
Yep,
and so I had
absolutely.
6. Yeah, but I had 6, but I only had like 2 of the. I had Empire and Orc Army books. I started to collect some of the 6 figures, 6th edition stuff, but then not really. And then I didn't touch 7th. And then I didn't touch 8th until probably a year into it. And then I started a new business, and I was just down the road from Games Workshop in Newcastle. And I used to wander there at lunch, and I went, oh, I've always wanted to get Empire, and it looks. And I did buy the big rule book, but I hadn't done anything else. Then I went, oh, I'll buy a steam tank. And I was so dumb. This is my funniest thing. One of the things I think about was I was so disconnected from the hobby that I thought the steam tank and all the big stuff would still be metal. So I went to pick up the steam tank box, and it was like, oh, it's empty. Oh, they must have it out the back or something. I didn't realize that it had all gone plastic. It was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
the weirdest thing how disconnected I was to it. But yeah, and then obviously started to paint the Empire, even though I'm an Orc and Goblin at heart, but all that stuff is so old. My collection was just, stuff from teenagers up to, it was just, yeah. So yeah, I got my Empire done. I think you guys have seen that. And then, then found Legions Club and met you guys, and that was pretty much it. And I played pretty heavy. I did Empire, got my Orcs up to scratch, and then I did a demon army. I don't know if you remember that for a slow grow. That's still under the bed somewhere.
Oh, I do remember that army. Yes, yes.
And
Yeah,
then
slow grow.
I got beaten by that army quite a few times, I believe.
oh, did you? I don't know. And then
I think my little wood elf slow grow. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you a few times too.
And then and then it died, and then I bought a crap ton of Tomb Kings on their final sale, although they're coming back, which is good. And then obviously I didn't play it, man. I hardly touched. I think I painted 2 models in that break up until probably at the beginning of this year, which is when I sort of went, I'll start painting a little bit. And then I saw. I saw you'd gone to CanCon and did well, Josh, I think, and that was it. But I still was not sold. I didn't know there was a community. And then about March, I saw, was it March or April when Castle Salt kicked in? And then I was like, oh, it was full. I think I said to Andrew, I tried to get in, it was full. And then I just put my name down. And then I thought, well, if I get in, I have to paint my army because I put Tomb Kings in. And I got in. So maybe get 2,000 points done. So that's pretty much it, really.
That's interesting. So you haven't played that much or done much at all.
I fiddled with a bit of no, I have I played a bit of ninth in the early bits. I'd had one game of army projects, but I didn't hobby, man. I just wasn't doing anything because I moved and got back into music and work, and I don't know. I was pretty it's probably a lot of people. It friggin' hurt when they killed Warhammer, and I was just like, oh.
Damn you, GW.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing I did do in the peak of 8th is I'd start a YouTube channel and did, I don't know how many, 80-something battle reports or something that's on there, which would be cool to get back up and running. And that's part of this podcast. A bit easier to do a podcast than, YouTube things. And plus it's more fun because I've got more people to do it with. So hopefully that's my background at the moment anyway. And Andrew, did you want to flesh out any of yours, or is that?
Oh, yeah, I can expand a bit, I suppose. Yeah, probably you guys. I find it funny. It seems like everybody you talk to, and you two are probably the same. You start these sort of, I suppose, armies or the races that you are drawn to as a kid, and this nostalgic thing that you it's always your one army that you sort of want to hang on to and play. But yeah, started out at 5th at school. Played dwarves in. Look, it's one of those ways that you play at school. It wasn't quite correct, we're running in there and just like killing each other. There was no break test, there's no psychology. It was just basically finished playing as a kid. Probably just like Colin was saying, you hit those teenage years and early 20s, and you go to the bar and you're talking to ladies, come back and do you want to come back and see my Warhammer collection? Isn't exactly
it's not a pickup line.
Best pickup line.
Damn.
Nah. So I put that on the back burner for a few years, and finally settled down. And little did my wife know, I had a bit of a closet nerd in the background. So that was a bit of a surprise one day when I started collecting Warhammer again. And anyway, had a couple of mates, and we were getting into it, just on the down low. Didn't tell too many people. But yeah, just connected through you guys just via, just looking up the Warhammer community in Newcastle. And obviously I came along to that slow grow. I remember that, and I think that's exactly when I joined in 8th edition.
Oh, was it?
Right.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah, I remember playing you, Colin, a few times, and playing Josh when he did his Pit of Shades and destroyed my entire dwarf unit with their initiative 2, including my general.
Oh my god!
that was a sad day.
Printed on your memory. Got on that.
Oh yeah.
8th edition.
One of my first games, and my big block just died straight away. So what is this? What is this game? But yeah, few comps, and then as GW blew the game up, there was a few. As you guys know, in the Newcastle community, there was quite a competitive scene with the ETC guys. So that followed into 9th when the ETC decided to go down that path. I kept in the scene probably longer than both of you. I wasn't in there for, as hard as some of the others, but I was playing even recently. This year there was a tournament I went to. I went to Can'tCon because obviously
right.
CanCon didn't host a Ninth Age event, so Can'tCon at Jolt Games went to that. Dabbled in a little bit of Age of Sigma as well, but yeah, like Josh said, it's there's books and stuff coming out left, right, and center. It was very hard to keep up. It was one of those games. It was almost like 40k. It just seemed like there's rules left, right, and center, and if you weren't committed to be this diehard player, it was very hard to be a social gamer in that sort of scene.
That's interesting, and maybe that's a topic for another podcast. But like the changes they made, I mean, I don't follow AOS too much, but it sounded like they listened to that and they've reduced at least that General's Handbook to annually now. So I wonder if that stuff like that's going to help. It'd be interesting to talk to people who actually know more about it. But
well, nothing like going back to a 20-year-old game with the rules have been stagnant for decades.
It's so funny. It's like, because even though, like, I mean, I didn't play it too much. It sounded like Josh, you did a little bit, but it was like, it's like a new game anyway. And even if it wasn't, I can't remember 20 years ago. So it's like, it's always like with all those extensions, like, what is it? The Storm of Chaos and War of the Beard thing you were talking to me about today. I was like, I probably have those white dwarfs, but I cannot remember them. So
yeah.
That's a lot to unwrap there. No, that's awesome. So like, I think today, I mean, generally we'll probably keep things pretty casual in this podcast. I think, we'll talk about, I think we want to plan on chatting a little bit about Old World, in terms of where it's up to, what as news drips out too slow. We'll probably, we'll put our thoughts on that, and any tournaments and things like that. But I'm sorry, any of our hobbying, I think it'd be cool to sort of, delve into that as well. But I think for this episode, we decided, just because the timing, rather than do too much of that stuff, we were going to also talk about the Castle Assault stuff that we went to, which was coming on 10 days. Was it only 10 days ago? I don't know. Not last weekend, the weekend before. Yeah, cool. Unless there was anything else we were going to cover before we went to that. I can't remember now. Such a good host. What was I thinking? No, that was it. Yeah, that was it. I think we're on.
I think that was it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So do we want to run around and just talk about quickly what Castle Assault generally is, the theme of it? I'm throwing this on you guys without telling you this. Who wants to do that? Because Castle Assault's got a bit of a reputation, doesn't it?
It does.
Who wants to take that on?
I think we can sort of talk
about
it.
Josh started talking. You got it, Josh. Get in there.
I know I had a reputation. Like it had been running for a few years before I first went to it. But I understand it had been going for a while. Even before I moved to Newcastle, and I think it was mainly the reputation was that the beer was really cheap. So everyone would go there and just drink a lot of alcohol and maybe play some games on top of that. And that was definitely the culture that I was there for. It's really, it was an institution every year. People would come, there'd be, I think, how many would be the most people who got there at once? It was over 100, I think.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah,
Fitting
I think
into
it was,
that room.
That whole room was Warhammer. Yeah. And some on the stage. Remember that? Like they had to use the stage as well.
Oh,
I don't know if you saw
they did. Yeah, for the stage.
Yeah, I remember that.
No, it was impressive. But yeah, then it sort of died over COVID, and like that all happened. Like I think it coincided with Eighth dying. Like I think it had Ninth Age for a year or two, where I think there was one Ninth Age where it was actually early on. I think we actually had a large turnout.
It was pretty good. Actually, I think I might have gone to that one. I think I took my primed Tomb Kings as Undying Dynasties. Like I airbrushed them all bone and airbrushed desert onto the bases, and they sort of half look painted.
Tabletop standard.
Tabletop standard.
Yeah. And I when I saw it was running this year, because I've been down in Melbourne now for a few years, and I've been looking for a reason to come up to Newcastle at some stage. I actually sort of had plans in 2020 And then that all got cancelled, obviously. I got locked down like 3 days before I was going to go. But when I saw Castle was going this year, I was like, yeah, no, that's a great excuse to come up to Newcastle anyway, and just have some beers and play some games, pretty much. But yeah, the first game that I played. Should we move on to games yet, or do you want to keep talking about Castle Assault?
No, let's go around our list and just So Castle Assault. The other thing, I guess, is it's 2-day, 5 games, 3 games, 2 games.
Sorry, yes, I should have
just
said
the usual 2,000
Yeah.
point Warhammer 6th edition. So, and in terms of like maybe when we're in the games, we might talk about the objectives and stuff, but they were fairly. There was 2 battle lines in it and stuff, so it was pretty standard. But yeah, apart from that, it was. And how many players did they end up with? About 34 or something, was it, or something like that?
Yeah,
something like
maybe.
Yeah, I've got the numbers here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we lost a heap on the second day. Oh well, a few. There's a few hangovers and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
I didn't even.
yeah.
I know there was people hungover. I didn't realize we'd lost any, but yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah, there was.
So
a couple we lost.
We went. Yeah, so basically all 3 of us went. I took 2,000 points of Tomb Kings, and Andrew, you took your dwarves, and Josh took your brats. So do we want to just run through sort of our lists, or just do that? Maybe just do that as part of game 1.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well then, yes, Josh. Let's start with yours, which is also mine. Game 1.
I know. I can't believe we got drawn against each other the first game, which was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, I was pretty happy about that.
Not even a grudge or anything. Just like, just drawn. Which is
rolled up.
Perfect.
And did you know, Josh, that me and Andrew had a Friday night messenger chat for a couple of hours, and I was trying to work out how I could beat you.
Bit of scheming, pre-game scheming.
Oh, that's funny.
Didn't help. There you go. So,
didn't help, but it was a fun game, and really, there was definitely some elements of luck involved in that game.
I reckon, I mean, like, we're not going to go. I mean, I won't go into any massive tactics here. I mean, look, my list was basically I wanted to paint stuff to get the Tomb Kings up to a point that I know it's a good base to build off. So I wanted to have like chariots, archers. I wanted to get the Tomb Guard done because they're probably the worst, the most finicky to paint, not the worst, sorry, and they came out pretty good. And obviously one of the skull chuckers and the casket, stuff like that you're going to use in most games. And some Sharpie as well. So it was pretty much, I did not build it to be competitive. I played 2 games of 6 before this, one against Andrew and one against Fury from the club. And I basically didn't change the list from when I took on Fury's Skaven. Like, I just threw it all together, played it, and I went, yeah, it's okay. And then I just left it. So, because then I didn't have to screw around with like, oh crap, I need to paint, something extra.
Yeah, you got it.
So that's all the strategy was. Although I did notice after the first game, man, I love the Tomb King's magic in 6. I was just like so dirty that I never played it in 6 because it's so simple. I love how it's so easy to remember, and you can a bit of spam, but so basically that was my army. What did you sort of just what was in your Brett's there?
My return list was, well, it was I just constructed a fairly balanced list, I suppose. I had one of each type of knight basically going on. I had a Bretonnian lord that sort of built for challenges. Had a virtue confidence that could reroll hits and misses in challenge. He had a sword that they could use as a hand weapon or a two-handed that ignores armor saves. And I think he just had the enchanted shield. So he was sort of like, he had a 1-up save if he used a hand weapon, but if he went for the two-hander, he only had a 3-up save. So it was pretty an aggressive sort of build. But it could put out some damage too. It was one of those ones where I'd always be worried that if he didn't kill the character, he was trying to
get killed on the way back.
Couple of I feel like he could survive maybe 1 round, but if it went for more than that, he'd probably get taken down. So I had that. Then I had the BSB with a virtue that gives me extra combat res and sword of might and a couple of damsels on life, which I found to be mostly useful. The few games where I really rolled a lot of marshes, which Mistress of the Marsh really has a limited value, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But all the other spells I found really good. And then I had the four blocks of knights, and then some peg knights, and 2 units of yeomen, and some skirmish archers, and a treb. And yeah, it was a I found, it's a type of list that I would typically take, through the years of playing in 8th edition and that type of thing, except for the lack of heroic killing blow that got errated, I think, in 2012 or something like that. It's actually nice not having heroic killing blow in the list, because when we're playing in 8th, like, I actually had to take it. Like, it didn't give me any choice. I was like obliged to take it if I had a lord, because that was like one of the only things that was keeping Bretonnia sort of competitive in 8th, because it was so threatening. So not having the obligation to take that actually gives me a whole lot more freedom in what virtue do I take now? How do I build my lord? It was actually a lot more interesting building a list.
Okay.
Having that, not having that sort of obligation to take it, which I found useful.
I didn't sort of run through my magic stuff, but I mean I had like chariots. On the chariots I had like that. I was testing out that banner that has that 5-up ward against against templates or non-ballistic skill shooting, I guess, and then otherwise reroll hits for them, and then the Undying Legion on the Tomb Guard, so they can just keep casting heals as well. But apart from that, it was fair. And then one of the Leech Priests was flying, so he could get in and out. And then my Tomb King had that magic item that allows you to cast 2 incantations. Roll 2 dice and pick the highest. And also he was, I think, what was a heavy. He had the strength 7 or whatever it was. Must have been a great weapon, and can't remember what it was, something else. Pretty common builds on him, but I mean, I guess, so that was my setup. I guess one thing I learned on my first, because as I said, played 2 games of 6 before I went to this. It was evident after playing Fury's Skaven of how much 6. Like, I was used to 8th, where like a unit, if you saw a big unit, you don't want to go into it. It's just going to, like, the amount of tax is just going to, just ream you. Whereas I wasn't aggressive enough against his Skaven. Like, my Tomb Guard could have taken on his Bell unit because he only was killing like 3 or 4 a turn or whatever, and I could just sit there and then keep healing. And so I think with this game, I thought to myself, well, if I can't slow down, I've got to throw those skellies out the front and then hopefully reform them into, I probably should reform them into 4 by whatever, but I just have a movement tray that was 5, and hope that I could probably take a charge and you won't kill them all. And then at some point I can start raising them back, and then I can do some counter charging and stuff. But before you got there, hopefully I can, casket you / hit you with my 2 shots of the Screaming Skull catapult. I mean, that was about the only strategy I had. That's why I cornered in the left of the table.
Yeah,
I guess I prayed to whatever gods the Khemri pray to.
Yeah, because he was sort of straddling a river, I think, in that corner. Had the casket right in the corner, and then the catapult sort of next to that, also behind the river, and then the Tomb Guard sort of in the river's ford, and then the Light Horsemen just next to them. Then I think you had your archers and your Shaftby and the chariot sort of in the center
sort of on the other
of
side
your deployment zone on the other side of the river. And essentially what I deployed most of my knights, because in my deployment there was a forest sort of opposite from where your Tomb Guard were, so I was sort of pushed into deploying mine more centrally, where I had my 3 main lances of knights there, and the yeoman and that kind of thing.
Because there was like a forest right on the left, hey, and then there was that sort of impassable building thing in the middle, and so we basically played on a 4x4 table.
Yeah, we played on a 4x4 table. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Oh, and sorry, and I do have 2 Tomb Scorpions, so I put them right down in the middle because I just thought at some point they're going to come down, and that means they're either going to come down on your unit or behind your units if they come down late, and then hopefully do some damage.
Yeah, hopefully to cause some chaos.
So what do you remember about it? I mean, I really remember about right at the beginning of the game, the first turn or 2, it felt swingy because I don't know if you failed. I can't remember. Or you got I got the casket through. Or I can't remember what it was, but there was a couple of dicey times when I took out a couple of Grail Knights or something, and you're like, "Oh crap, this is."
So that was what was that? I think that was like I managed to dispel casket a couple of times. I think it was turn 3 where I
Right.
got through and it killed a bunch of stuff, which
Yeah.
was pretty painful.
And was it the casket or the catapult that hit your archers or someone, and someone ran off and something
I think it was
happened?
a casket. So when I found it, because I think you rolled like a 4 to cast the casket, and I think I
Right.
re-dispelled a couple of times. I'm like, oh, I've got 3 dice here because I had a magic resistance on one of the units, so I still had 3 dice to dispel it. And then I rolled a 4 and
Double
2
ones.
ones, and I was like, I had to roll a 4 here. What the heck? And yeah, I think because of the Treb and the Pegasus, the peasants are on the leadership 5. They were going to have a hard time because they're all sitting on a hill, so they could see the casket very easily. So they were just, I think you killed like 6 or 7 bowmen, and they panicked and fled. And then the trebuchet I think just died. And then the ground knights, I think he rolled quite high on the ground knights, and I think 4. I think I was 4 out of the 7 knights. The grounds that hurt quite a lot. That was the most easiest I could see them really, because everyone else was either at that point either in combat or couldn't see.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. And then I just remember, I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but when I knocked a few of them, and then you charged that realm unit, that realm bus hit those skeletons, and I had 21 in there, and I remember sitting to myself going, and you put a yeoman in front of my chariots, because it's like, if these skellies hold, then I potentially have some flank charges on here.
Because that was in turn 2. I'd moved my knights up, and I think you'd reformed your archers into a block and put your hierophant you'd moved your hierophant out of that unit.
Yeah.
Just behind them next
That's
to
the
your
bad bit
shafty.
about this whole thing.
Yeah. That was set up, unfortunately, for badness to happen. But because I think there was an opening there, because I was intending to double charge it, and I actually just missed the charge with
That's right.
with the questing knights, and so
That's
just
right.
the realm with the BSB went in by themselves, and I was like, oh, that's a bit dicey. So I had to try to redirect the chariot. I don't know if that would have been successful or not in the end, but I was fortunate because the trebuchet. I don't remember. The trebuchet scattered. I was aiming for the chariots, and it scattered like 2 or 4 inches, just clipping 2 skeleton archers, killed them. And then in the ensuing combat, I killed just enough and had enough static combat res to crumble you down exactly, so there was no skeletons left.
That's right. So if the Treb didn't scatter, I would have had 2 skeletons.
Yeah, you would have had 2
your
skeletons
unit
left. Yeah. And
but I didn't.
No, and instead I just overran straight into your hierophant and the Shafty.
Yeah.
Which was
and there goes my
bad
game.
situation. It sort of unraveled from there. I think that was around the same turn that the casket went off, and so like it was kind of like, oh god, what's going to happen now? But I think having lost the hierophant, it was always going to be hard. I think the other thing is the tomb guard just didn't really get a chance in that game to
do anything,
to do much. I just decided not to engage it, because I just just felt like going into that thing was going to be bad news.
I think over time, I think in this, I don't know, in my brain in this tournament, I got better at going, let's throw the tomb guard. Like, when you've got a normal army, you want to put your general in a good spot. You don't want to lose them, stuff like that. Whereas you don't really care as a tomb king. Like, it's like, let's get him up there. He can heal the unit and he can do some damage. And if he dies, he dies. Like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, did you have a magic banner that was also healing as well? Like,
yes. Yeah. So well, that's the one. So he can operate by themselves and heal his own unit. And so I was just not aggressive. I mean, that's me not knowing what to do. But, each time you do this, you learn a bit. And that was the fun thing. Yeah. I did find out later after the whole tournament that I could raise my catapult crew back up, which was interesting. So that, in 6th edition, it does mean I probably should leave the catapult there and not just take it off.
That's so bizarre. So you'd have to kill the catapult specifically
itself. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, it will crumble as well, I guess. So if you do beat, I don't know how I'll have to check the crumble rules. So it could just crumble anyway. But
it'll probably
if you
just crumble.
Yeah, if you don't lose by like if it's just goblin wolf riders or something attacking it, they're probably going to not totally kill it. You know what I mean? So
true.
Anyway, you took me out 15-5 on that one. So that was our first game.
Yeah.
Did you anything else to add on it, or that was probably
me? No, that's
pretty good.
I think we covered it pretty well.
Cool.
How'd you go first game, Andrew?
Mine? Yeah.
And what your list is too.
Oh yeah, I've just brought that up actually. Memory's not that good these days. So yeah, my first game was up against Klein. He was playing Beasts. So yeah, as you guys know, I was bringing my dwarves. So I was going on a bit of a, because obviously Magic is quite a big thing in 6th edition. So I was going pretty anti-magic heavy. So I bought the Rune Lord, who gives you +2 to spell dice on your base 4 for dwarves, and then he had the talisman that takes one of the power dice off the opponents. So you roll on 7 usually, and I had 2 scrolls as well, the 2 dwarf scrolls. So I was pretty heavy with the anti-magic. The general was rolling with a 1-up rerollable save, and is also immune to poison and killing blow. So he was pretty resilient, I suppose. But as Rune Lords do, they don't attack all that well. And then Methane was the same sort of kit, defensive wise. So yeah, he was coming up with a 1-up rerollable with the immunity to poison and killing blow as well. Excuse me. I was rolling Longbeards and Warriors in both with hand weapon shield. This is probably my bit of my undoing, I suppose. I was very defensive, which definitely showed when it came to combat, I suppose. So yeah, my best block was obviously my Longbeards, but you're only rolling with strength 4 attacks, so it's not that killy. And then on top of that, I just had Rangers for some scouting. Probably, I don't know, in the future I probably wouldn't do that. Scouting's not the best I've found in 6th edition. I was rolling Thunderers, unit of 12 of those. Both of those, the Thunderers had hand weapon shield. Rangers are rolling with the great weapons. 2 units of Troll Slayers. These guys are absolutely awesome, although they do die in droves.
So how did you end up
just
using
no
them? Because I know
wards.
in our game they didn't. Yeah, like were they more like? How did you end up using your Troll Slayers?
So I just put them up, sort of. So the game plan I sort of had was like, just have the Troll Slayers maybe a little bit forward on the 2 flanks, protecting my flanks, and then just have these 2 core units, the Longbeards and the Warriors, as sort of countercharge units. Just try and get a flank in there somewhere, or vice versa. If somebody came through onto one of those units, have my the Troll Slayers as the flank charges. Just a normal setup, like it's it didn't work for me, as we'll find out as we go through how my games went. On top of that, I was pretty artillery heavy, so I had a bolt thrower, one with +1 strength for taking out chariots, so strength 7, one with just some flaming attacks, even though there wasn't a lot that was flammable that I came across, so that was a bit of a nuff thing that I didn't really need. The grudge thrower was absolutely fantastic in some games. I had the rune of accuracy for re-rolling scattered dice, and that is pretty much a must.
Yeah.
With those grudge throwers. Gyrocopter again, fantastic. 140 points, but it's I threw it away a few times as like a bit of chaff, but it's pretty expensive chaff coming in at 140 points. Breath weapon can be really, really good against certain horde armies. So yeah, that was a bit of a star, but yeah, pretty expensive. And the organ gun, biggest letdown of the game, or the entire tournament, 120 points.
Did it have that psychological effect or not really?
Yeah, I feel like everyone thinks it's this overpowered sort of, destroy whole units in one go, but as we'll see very soon, like I had a couple of good little goes here and there, but yeah, definitely I thought it was going to perform better than what it did. I think a lot of other people do as well. But yeah, to me, I thought the grudge throwers, that's the star.
Yep.
I thought definitely. I think I'll be taking 1 or 2 of them, and definitely probably just give the organ gun a bit of a miss next time.
Fair enough.
So yeah, first game was against Glenn. I was a little bit worried. Yeah, so me and Colin, as we were scheming about his game with Josh, we obviously went into my game against Glenn with his beasts. I thought he was going to be ambushing. He had quite a bit of ambushing, but what I didn't realize is he needed a certain lord for that, which he didn't take. So everything I thought that was going to happen didn't happen. So yeah, so he ended up basically, deployed in pretty much a straight line, just as you do. Didn't have much shooting, so he came right at me. This is probably one thing I think Glenn was really, really unlucky in a certain respect. I had my this is kind of a bit of a star of the show actually. These the Rangers, although I don't like the scout rule, they're off to their own side, and he had some kitted up minnows. The coming, they had what was it? Maybe 13, 14 attacks. Charged in. I'm just like, oh, here we go. This unit's gone, and he just completely whiffed. We sat there for a couple of turns, and the Rangers just belted him down and pursued him, and yeah, see you later to that minor unit. I felt pretty bad actually.
How much minors in this edition? How big that would unit be?
So it was 3. It wasn't super expensive, but it was, what minos are like they're tough 4, but it was just coming out. They had like I think +1 attack, and they had I think they're coming up at like maybe 4 or 5 attacks base.
Yeah.
So yeah, they it should have done a lot better than what it did, but the Rangers did pretty well on that. But yeah, everything else just came down. I got pretty lucky with a few hits into one of his big units, his main block with my grudge thrower. So I took quite a few models off there. The bolt throwers were going pretty good on the flanks and taking out his chariots. He had 2 chariots, so they were coming with the goods. But yeah, he ended up having a Demon Prince, so that sort of slammed into the center. And then he had a herd unit, Gores and Ungores. I think it was like a mixed unit, so that was in there as well. And then he had running these minos on the flanks. So basically, it's sort of like we were bogged down in the middle a bit, and the Troll Slayers sort of got rid of a minor unit, and then were luckily enough to get in the flank of one of the. There was this forest in the center, and it was just killing both of us for these charges and movement. So he had a minor unit, couldn't get to my Slayers in time, and then they just got a flank charge off. And as you know, with the Demon Prince, it just comes down to, few too many points, sort of, and you're looking at a crumble, and that's exactly what happened from the combat res. So yeah, it was a bit of a swing, but it wasn't huge. It was pretty bloody in the middle. I did lose quite a few Longbeards and Warriors. I think I lost my BSB in there somewhere. So I think in the end I came out with a small win. So it was a 13-7. Glenn was a great guy to play against as well. So that was only, as Colin knows, my second game. My first one was against him. So I'm pretty fresh to 6th. And just the dynamics and the way that psychology plays is such a huge thing, and just the way that you've only got the front rank, and obviously the model's taken away, you can't attack back. It's a huge dynamic to the game that I didn't have my head around for that entire for Castle Assault at all. But yeah, it's just but it was fun. It was fun.
That's awesome, man.
Good game.
That's cool. Well, I ended up with only 5 points on that one, so that's I think that's what it was, wasn't it? 15-5, Josh? I think we had that right.
I think so.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
it was. Yep.
So what was so Josh would have gone straight to the top tables. So what was your next game, Josh?
So next game was against Dave Palmer, with his Slanesh models. He's a nice guy,
Yeah,
Dave.
cool. Yeah,
Enjoyed
he's
this
awesome.
game. I hadn't met him before.
The dirty boy, Slanesh.
What did he? Yeah, he's a pretty small little army. I think he had like a demon prince, and he had a unit of chosen chaos knights and a fairly big block of chosen warriors as well, and just like some warhounds and some horsemen and some furies, just like some little bits of chaff here and there. This game sort of it came down to a few key moments. The first being that I managed to sort of tempt, I suppose, his demon prince with my peg knights. Sort of just gave him a charge to charge my peg knights.
Bit of bait. Yeah.
Just to draw him sort of across. The peg knights, I think they fled the charge and then they failed to rally and just went off the board. And I was like, oh well, I guess they've done their work. And then while that was going on, I sort of managed to get past the prince and the errants, which I had out on the flank. Actually, he gave me a charge with the hounds, and I just sort of the errants just went straight into the hounds and overran. And he sort of set up a counter charge with the chosen. But the angles that it worked out at meant that I was able to. The errants then fled the charge from the chosen knights, but I positioned the ground knights so that they could actually then hit the flank of the chosen knights, which meant that I won that combat fairly handsomely, and the knights just fled off the board. And then the other key moment was I managed to get the realm and the questing knights into the other block of chosen warriors. You try to get two-lane delusions off on the questing knights to sort of distract them, because the two-lane delusion spell is one where if they don't declare a charge that turn, the unit just sort of heads off in a different direction, basically.
All right.
But I think he got enough, and then he measured the range, and it was actually just outside 24 inches, so then the spell just didn't go off, which meant I was able to set up the questing knight so they could charge with the realm that the following turn into the warriors, and having both those units go into that block at the same time with all the static combat res that the lance gets and all the the attacks and the lord in there doing his challenging stuff, meant again I was able to win that combat fairly handsomely and just sort of run straight through. And my bowmen and the trebs have been doing pretty good work, just knocking down the other hounds and the furies and that type of thing. And ultimately, I won that one 16-4 in the end.
And that was I mean that would have been perfect for you too, because I think the objective was getting their deployment zone as well.
Yes, it was.
So
that was
for you to do.
That's right. The second round was getting. I think it was 450 points if you had a unit in the opponent's objective zone. Which I managed to achieve, because basically the way that game they ended up well over onto his side of the table by the end of the game.
Yeah. That's good.
Yep.
Yeah, I took on. Was there anything in that game that you won it, I guess, but anything specifically that you do different or that you learned, or it was all pretty went to plan?
I think that one largely went to plan. I didn't learn too much. I learned a lot more from the next one, but we'll get to that.
Okay. Cool. So this one will be quick for me, because I played Tim Nesbitt with Orc and Goblins. So obviously that's my one true love. It was quite good to see, and it went like Orc and Goblin games too, which is even funny in 6th edition. So I thought I was pretty confident in this one, just because I'd seen what against Skaven, and I think against was it your Andrew? I can't remember. Just doing panic and stuff like that, hitting people with the catapult. Like, it was pretty good. So and there was one forest but it wasn't even in game really. So there was everything in his arm. He could see my casket. It was on a hill. He basically had he had like a big unit of big ends, another unit of orcs, and then a bunch of, I think he had 2 or 3 units of Nikons with, 6 fanatics or 9 fanatics. He had a fair bit of that. And then he had a few chariots and stuff. So he had some, and rock lobber and bolt thrower, 2 bolt throwers, I think. But yeah, man, it just, I don't think I did anything great. It just orcs and goblins. The poor dude failed. I don't know how many animosity tests he had. That
Oh
I didn't
no.
even realize in 6. I couldn't remember that you can actually charge your own unit. So his
Yes.
orc biggins charge his other orcs.
Oh no.
And then I did hit it with a casket and a Screaming Skull catapult at some point, so he lost a unit of night goblins off the board. And they, he's all in. He was back on his back line almost, and so when they fled, they were just gone. And I think he lost one wizard in that, and then I think I got a scorpion up on his other one, level 4 or something, and got rid of that. And then by then my chariots, and I think it was my chariots and my other scorpion, and made it into his deployment zone as well. So like it just went south for him with paddocks and thingy, and I was like, my other units were just sitting back in my deployments going, okay, well, nothing to do. But yeah, so I felt sorry for him. He was a good opponent, but that's orcs for you, and I think we just laughed. It was, it was pretty good. He did, he took out I think he got rid of my Sharpie and stuff like that at the end, but so it ended up being a 14-6 win to me or something like that.
Nice.
So he did get some of my, I think he got a fair bit of the units when they got across the board, but I still had some stuff in there. But so that was just fun. It was by the second game, a few beers in, and just seeing the orcs be orcs. It was it was good.
Yeah.
But good to get a win for on 6th edition for the first time in a tournament. So yeah. How'd you go, Andrew?
Yeah, so I ended up playing Angus my second game, who I didn't know at the time was quite heavy into the scene and is quite competitive. So yeah, I went into it not with too much of an idea on what to do. I thought I might come across Josh and Angus. Well, they got Breathless, I suppose, so they're always taking cavalry, and I didn't have too much of a game plan in that regard on what to do other than try and slow it down and possibly get a counter charge if somehow I can get my Unbreakable Slayers in there, but 6 inches charge from dwarves is
you don't really get that off. When you get that off, you celebrate.
Yeah. It's so daunting too. Just even looking at something, you're like, oh, is that 6 inches? You're like, you're trying to, it's anyway. So he sort of like came at me with a bit of a center. He had, I think, two of his buses. Then he was flanking me with, he had a
the Knight's errant list, didn't he? With so that's a new thing.
Yeah.
Well, not new thing, but it's not a non-standard one.
List. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So that's Grail
so
champions. Is that right? Grail Knight champions in errant.
Yeah.
Points extra for Grail champion.
He had them. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I just interrupted. But yeah, it was a different Brett list. Yeah.
It was effective. I'll give it that. But yeah, it's had some flying stuff coming down the sides, and another one of his Knight errant buses coming down the flanks. But yeah, he was rolling. I haven't seen this before. I'm sure it's pretty common because I saw it a little bit later. But he was rolling with his the fast cab in front of his buses just to block line of sight. So yeah, I did have some shooting problems initially, and that was the only thing that was really gonna possibly slow him down, or
is that for like really on your on like everything but the grudge thrower, basically? Is that right? So like you can't.
Yeah, basically.
Yep.
But yeah, I didn't do terribly great in shooting. I think I got the grudge thrower hit his peg on the head and ended up killing the knight of all things. But then the peg just kept running down the flank and killing my war machines.
The Pegasus by itself,
So-
just unmounted.
Yeah, it didn't run off. Yeah, it just where he rolled, and it's just like you keep controlling it. So yeah, that was a bit of the bane to my flank. And probably this is like the quintessential just classic organ gun. So he was running his fast cav, and I think I shot it enough where I could see one of his units for line of sight with my organ gun, and I'm like, yep, this is it. All right, got to take some knights off. Rolled a 10, so that's 10 hits automatic, strength 5, AP 3, and then obviously he's come in with his. I think he had a 5-up save after the armor modifications, and then his 5-up ward, and I got none. He did everything, so saved all of them, and I'm just like,
God.
all right, this is gonna hurt. And then obviously, as you can tell, he's sort of charged in and did some damage. I had Slayers on the flanks. They held up pretty good, funnily enough, because as you know, the Bretts are all about the charge. So yeah, he got into my my warriors and longbeards and did some damage there. And the Slayers, they stuck around pretty well right till the end of the game, actually. But I just didn't have anything for a flank to get in and do any damage. So yeah, probably my biggest letdown. Again, this is me just not knowing the rules. Was just banners. The cost of losing banners.
Yeah. Yep.
And I put banners on everything. So these little units of Thunderers and Quarrelers, they've all got banners as well.
Yep.
So you're losing 100 points for those. It hurts when you start adding up the points.
That's interesting you
so,
say
yeah,
that, because
that
I
was-
reached out to Josh about a week or two before Castle, so asking about banners, because I was just looking at my list going, why do I even want to take any? Like what are they going to do for me? You know,
Yeah.
like, and he was like, yeah, there's no blood and glory. And I went, well, I'm not
Yeah.
putting banners on my bloody, archers and shit. So yeah.
Nah, yeah, I wish I knew this. There's all these things I wish I knew because they hurt. So yeah, in the end, I think I got 3 points out of that game. So it's a bit of a whitewash, but it was a good player. It was helping me out with a few bits and pieces. Sort of explaining. That's the one thing with sixth is obviously the pre-measuring.
Yeah.
So obviously you got to eyeball it, but for me, I'm just like, it seems like different. So you see, some people they eyeball it, but they might do little sneaky pre-measures with other things. So I was just asking him that. I'm like, can you divide the board by 2 and this and that? He's like, nah, it's like literally you just got to eyeball it as best you can and not really use any sort of, I suppose, even sort of psychological sort of measuring aids sort of thing. So yeah,
It sounds like a topic for
was,
a podcast.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Because I certainly do sit there and go
area.
like, 1 foot, 2 foot when I'm launching my catapult, but like, I know you shouldn't be.
That's what I was trying to do. Yeah. So I was trying to count out with sort of my hands. I'm like, I think that's a foot.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that with
And
my
then
hand.
I think that's a foot.
Yeah.
Not with my
okay,
hand, but as in
Yeah.
So I'll visually say this grain of sand or that tree there, I think that's a foot, and then that hill over there, that'll be another foot. So I was sort of like, but I wasn't using anything as a measuring guide, but it was like more of a distance. So I think that to that is like a foot, and then that to that is like a foot sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh nah, you can't really do that. So
Totally topic, because it does. It's one of those etiquette things, isn't it? Like, well, we should definitely talk about that, because I feel like pre-measurement allows you to be a little bit of etiquette comes in, because you can agree before you do things, but then with 6 not being able to pre-measure, that's when you do end up with these, I guess, arguments after you've tried to do something, thought it was in, but then it's on a real grey area, and it's like, well, there was no way for us to pre-agree on that, because we couldn't pre-measure.
You're not taking anything out and specifically measuring with anything. You're just sort of like, it's pretty grey, because I think that is a way that people estimate distance is they use comparable. So it's like, I think that's a football field. and then that's another football
Oh,
field.
gotcha.
So like it's all
Yeah, I
like,
think you
oh,
could do that.
that's
I just don't think
but
you put your hand on the table or anything. But yeah, we should talk about that in
no,
another
yeah,
podcast because I think
100%.
that's there's such good things with six that where it's guessing, but at the same time, what are the downfalls? So, yeah. So did you how
Yeah.
did you end up? That was not good then in the end.
No, yeah, 3-17.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really good to play against. Sort of showing me the ropes. Obviously, he's a very good player and explained quite a few things, which I didn't know. So it's good to learn off.
Absolutely. When hey, if you got 3 points off him, that's more than all his other opponents got, wasn't it? Because didn't he only drop 8 points in the tournament?
Yeah, wasn't he at
I think.
92? Yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
right. He was 90.
So he lost 8 points and you took 3 of them. So yeah, that's a win.
Yeah. Silver lining.
That's good. Right, where were you up
uh,
to? I don't even know. Was that your game 2, wasn't it?
is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, so it sounds like a fun Josh. You learnt things on your third game.
I certainly was a learning experience. I came up against Richard Saxon with his Blood Dragon Vampire Counts army, all in Bretonnian formation, Bretonnian Lance formation, undead.
Oh yes, right, cool.
It was a list that I think he had it was mainly knights. I think he had one block that was 4 deep that had a Blood Dragon Lord with 2 White Lords and one being a BSB. I think the other one had the book that reduces -1 to hit within 6 inches of the character that holds that book. And then I think he had 4 other blocks of knights, 112, and I think 3 units of 6, and then 2 banshees. And that was the list. So very very aggressive list. Not much like in terms of magic and that type of thing. Not much that can hit me. I think his Vampire Lord was level 3. Yeah, it was level 3. But he didn't have any other casters. So yeah, it's a fairly limited amount of power dice. So and no other range. So I was kind of like, I probably could have tried to be a bit more cagey or defensive in this game, really. Especially because the way he deployed, he actually tried to avoid this big forest that was in his deployment zone. Because I rolled the Master of Wood on my life wizards, and he was like, he really didn't want that going off and anything. So I actually deployed to one side, and I actually ended up deploying sort of pretty much across from him, but I potentially could have like deployed further towards the forests just to A, give me more space between him so I could have a bit more time using the trebuchet and that type of thing, but also maybe to draw him into the forest so I can use some magic a bit more. But I didn't really do that. I just sort of deployed across, and then I mooned things up and actually probably used my yeoman a bit too aggressively. Again, I pushed them in front of him to try to redirect him. But he actually just used his smaller blocks of knights to go through them, and they overran. Like I fled with them so they would do their full charge of 14, and they came up to my knight blocks, but I didn't really draw out his main unit, which is sort of what I wanted to do to sort of get the unit with the 3 characters at the front in the wrong position, and then I felt some pressure to actually try to charge him then, when I probably could have actually let his little units of 6 actually charge my knights, because I feel like I had enough static combat res and staying power that I probably could have just taken the charge. But I actually felt like I needed to push things. So I actually went ahead and charged them rather than waiting. And because I was wanting to charge them, I actually had the opportunity to put the Ground Knights into his main lance with the 3 characters in it, which again was probably a bit of hubris, really, thinking the Ground Knights could just go into anything. Because at this point I was kind of like, yeah, sure, they can probably handle it, maybe. And they go in, they're -1 to hit with the book. And because it's got 3 characters at the front, I couldn't actually strike the unit itself. And I actually ended up failing to do a single wound with the Grails.
Oh god.
So they lost handsomely. I actually managed to. I think I had to test on a 3 for the Grails. I actually rolled a 2 in that game, which was like, it was an amazing moment. It didn't actually affect the game that much in the end because they broke the next turn anyway. And then other things came to pass on the flank where I'd actually when I moved the yeoman up, I'd actually moved the Pegasi up on the flank as well, also to try to give an opportunity for his main bus to charge them too. But he actually ended up getting a Banshee in the flank of the Peg Knight, so I just didn't even see that charge. And then because they're in the flank, the Banshee didn't do any wounds, but it was a drawn combat, which I now realise it was actually played it a bit wrong because it was just a Banshee by itself. It shouldn't have got a flank charge bonus because you need to be unit strength 5 or more to get a flank bonus.
Yep.
So I should have been winning that combat by 1 just because no one was going to wound anyone, and then I had that number. But because they were locked there, he actually got his other unit of 12 knights without a character in it. They were coming round the building that was sort of out on his flank, and they actually got a charge into the flank of the Peg Knights. Ran that combat, then managed to clip the flank of the questing knights with the Lord in it. Going in the flank there, that was disastrous for me. So took out my general, took out the questing knights. When they went into the flank, I tried to reposition the realm knights to sort of try to deal with him, but I hadn't accounted for Van Hill's Dance Macabre. So that bus overran, and then he actually managed to move and then charge them with Van Hell's into the flank of the realm knights as well. And yeah, essentially, it was really game over at that point. So I actually lost that game 20-0.
Wow.
So
okay.
yeah, it was a big loss. Wow. But yeah, it was a game where there was definitely a lot of things that I learned from that game. He used his charge lanes really well, and he didn't take the bait that I tried to give him, and and I could have deployed it slightly differently. And this might have changed, but it was a good game though.
Yeah, wow, no, that's Well, I'm glad I didn't have to come up against that list. I did see those. I mean, I don't like vampires at the best of the time, but when you match them up with Bretonnian rules,
it's
like
it's
really
amped
strong.
up Bretonnian list almost, because the fact that they're undead and they get all those guys get killing blow on the charge, as well as being strength 6, really brutal. And then having the extra movement capabilities with Van Hells as well, it just combines to. It's actually a really scary list. It's really scary.
Yeah.
Well, wow,
yeah. How was your game, Colin?
Yeah, well, I played Dave Palmer next, so
Oh, you played Dave next?
I was
amazing.
Yeah, I played, and it was awesome because I mean he was saying I hadn't met him before, but he's an old Podhammer guy. He was on Podhammer too, wasn't he?
He was saying
years ago. I don't know.
He was involved in running the very first Castle Assault, and he played loads of 6th and 7th. I think he dropped it during 8th because he just hated 8th, which in the context now I've played 6 quite a bit. I'm like, I can sort of see now why someone would hate 8th.
I love 8th too, but I can see why people hate 8th. Yeah, totally.
Is that because we both came back into Warhammer during 8th? Is that why we have that love of it? Because we didn't have that context? Do you think?
I think so, and I didn't. Yeah, there was no context, and I hadn't because I hadn't played 7th. There was just all this new stuff, and I did like some of the new stuff, and I like modeling, so I didn't mind having units of 40 or 50 things,
Yeah.
But and hadn't. I think in 6, I did. When I did play it right at the beginning, I wasn't playing it properly. So the whole psychology and all this stuff that is so much better in 6, I didn't even realize it was a thing. So I think that's probably why I didn't. Yeah.
So, I was just used to 8th edition
where
something
like that.
Psychology didn't seem to make much difference.
Well, everyone was
just re-roll everything.
Yeah, just re-roll everything. Yeah, exactly. So,
Anyway.
So he was like, we just got on the piss straight away. Pretty much, he was already on it anyway. But then when I knew the type of person he was, and he was saying he's a big swearer, so I was making him swear all the time. So it was good. But yeah, I wasn't. By then, I didn't have much knowing that some of them were immune. I think, were they immune to psych? I can't remember with his Slanesh, but it was pretty much the same sort of thing. Sit back and try and hit them with the catapult on his knights, because he had that 6 or 7. The chosen knights was pretty high, so they could get hit with my catapult, try and take them out. And I did try to aim my Tomb Guard against his other chosen, the block, but I don't know what I was going to do about the Demon Prince. Like I was like, well, it's going to get in and it's going to kill stuff, like what can I do?
Yeah.
But it went pretty good actually in the end, because what happened was, even though, I thought I was going to go really, it had some good moments in the middle of the game where like my scorpions came up on his chosen knights, and I only managed to get 1 or 2 down, but it was still, they were, they 4 or 5. I was like, okay, I could probably tie them up.
Yeah.
I did, what was that?
Is each night, how much would they be per night?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
well, we'll learn about them in a
knocking
minute.
off
But
a
anyway,
couple.
so there was
Yeah.
that. And
Okay.
then I had my chariots out to the right, and I think he had, what do you have out there? I can't remember. What ended up happening was, I think it was 5 Marauder Knights or something, and his Demon Prince went into my chariots, like right up on the other side of the board.
Oy.
But he whiffed everything.
Okay.
And my guys that I had, my chariot, actually, I might have even been, I can't remember who charged. No, he must have charged me. But I killed a few of these Marauder guys. And anyway, what ended up happening is my chariots ended up killing his Demon Prince. And it was like, what just happened?
Wait.
Like over 2 rounds of combat, he just kept whiffing.
Through combat
And
res? Like, what
Yeah.
did
yeah, it
you
was
actually
just
kill him?
combat res.
Oh.
It was combat res, yeah, and him popping. And yeah, and I was like, are you kidding?
Amazing.
I had like 1 chariot left in the end, but
Yeah, that'd
yeah.
hurt. That'd hurt.
So, and then by then though, he had another set of dogs, and his harpies had gone around and got rid of my catapult. So really all that was left was, remember, this was the objective one too. So there was the objective in the middle of the table. His chosen warriors were near it, and I had
hold the center. Yeah.
I had 2 or 3 of Sharpty, and my Tomb Guard were about to go into his chosen warriors, and the Scorpion potentially was still tying up his knights. Sorry, no, it was my skeleton warriors had taken over from the Scorpion on his knights to hold them up. I'd since flown where was my Hierophant? He'd gone over to the Tomb Guard, but I thought, okay, before I charge, I better get him out of there because he's going to get killed. And he had 2 harpies left after he killed my casket. So this is where I didn't realize the rules. I flew my Hierophant over at this point, my chariots had not killed his Demon Prince yet. So I flew my Hierophant out of the unit to get within 12 of my chariots, and that's how I held them back. So that was worth it, because eventually I killed his Demon Prince. And then my Tomb Guard went into his chosen warriors and wiped, and the Sharpty killed them, routed them. And meanwhile, I still have like 10 skeleton warriors left holding up those knights. But I'm like, my Tomb Guard fully buffed, because I'll heal them. I mean, I'm going to take out those knights easy. So I've got this game, like I was like, this is pretty good, and so like turn 4 or whatever, I flew my Hierophant a little bit. I went, well, what's the Hierophant doing? He's done his job. He's healed the chariots. Well, I don't know. I'll fly a little bit closer and shoot the 18-inch magic missile at these 2 harpies that just killed my casket, just to take him out, So I flew over there. He dispels it. And then in his turn, he goes, my harpies can charge your Hierophant. I went, oh, what? He's like, yeah, skirmishes 360. I'm a stupid idiot. He went straight in, killed my Hierophant. And then so my chariots crumbled, and then I was like, oh fuck, well that's annoying. But I was like, okay, I've still got this game. I charged my Tomb Guard, full strength Tomb King, into that unit of 5 or 4. I think it was 5 knights left. And he wiped my Tomb Guard. So his knights were standing next to the objective, and I had 1 of Sharpty next to him, and he won.
Oh my God.
And it was all in the last turn and a bit. I just went, what the hell just happened?
What just happened?
So I don't know if I can't even remember if I whiffed or not, but I'd love to work that combat out again, because I was like, how did my Tomb Guard not take on just 5 knights, just not even in, just do a bit of damage and a little bit of combat res? I don't know, I can't remember. But by then I'd drunk a lot too, but it swung right back round to 14-6 loss. But I thought I had it, man. I was like, the turn and a half left, I was like, yeah, I've got this. It just, I don't know.
Because they have Killing Blow, don't they, as well? Isn't that right?
Killing Blow, and I can't remember what happened, but there's a big picture of them all dead and him standing next to them.
Why?
Anyway, that was my game. So I lost 2 games and 1 on the first day. Yeah. 1-1. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Smash through yours, Andrew.
Yeah. So my last game of day one, up against Ross from Sydney, another fantastic guy to play against. That's one thing I did notice. The community, it's actually, it was really good. Like, a bit competitive, like most games, but I found it more fun. There's a lot of talk going on. I find the community is actually really good. Probably one of the big draw cards to getting on board with sixth. Yeah, Ross was playing his Vamps. So he was rolling with he had a bit of a bus going with the Dark Knights with a White King or something like that in there. White character, bit killy. He actually had quite a bit of movement. He had like bat units. What was there? Just skeletons with a Lamia vamp in there. He was rolling a Graveguard unit and I think there was a zombie unit in there as well. So yeah, I sort of lost the game from the get-go because had a couple of beers like everybody else and probably wasn't thinking too straight. So I deployed quite long, and there was a hill which I set up quite a few of my units around, and then he started deploying to the side, and it didn't quite all come together for a bit. And I'm like, why is he over in this little corner to a bit? And then sort of started deploying over to the side where he was a bit more, thinking that he was going to come across the board and sort of meet up, but he sort of all kept sort of like, turtling in this corner a bit. And then once we kind of finished deployment, I sort of like realized, oh, hang on, he's got to be within 12 inches of his general to march.
His general to march, yep.
Did not even think about that. And then I've got these
dudes
two
over the
odd
other
units
side
doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, here we go. So anyway, that he's come at me with his bus of knights. And yeah, this is sort of like, the deployment wasn't good, and then I think it was like turn 1 or turn 2, my grudge thrower blew up. My organ gun in a prime position to fire at these knights misfired, couldn't fire that turn or the next, and I'm just like, oh, here we go. Bolt throwers, 2 bolt throwers just, couldn't make it to save my life, and I'm just like, oh, here we go. The only thing doing half decent was the Thunderers with their AP 1 plus strength 4 for a total of 2 AP. They were knocking a few knights off. So as you said before, it was the center, so there was that token in the center you had to get to. So the guys that I deployed on the left were doing their 6-inch march at a time to try and get to the center. So I had these units doing pretty much nothing on the left. And then he's come through on the right. I had a unit of Slayers and a bolt thrower. So he's basically moved down with his bats and his Graveguard towards me, and the rest is pretty much gone to the center. So he's come into one of my big units in the center. That was my Longbeards, and he just blew them apart with his night bus. So they ran, he caught me. It wasn't looking too good, but I did have a unit of Slayers in the center, which held him up. Basically, he was raising a lot of zombies, and they were just raised because he's got that 18-inch range, and he was just picking points.
Yeah.
So he was just going for all my war machines, because it's free raise, and he's getting 120 points here, and 70 points there, this and that.
Do we play? Is it right that they have to raise at least 5 to form a new unit? Is that same rule for those guys?
Yeah, it would have been about that. Like, it wasn't a lot. I thought it was 5 or 7 or something. Not huge, but it was enough to get rid of these, just points of points.
Yep.
Yeah. So I did get rid of his night bus with my Slayers, and then he bogged him down with I think a unit of zombies. And then on the right, my Slayers slowly just got whittled away with his Graveguard. I took a heap with me. But yeah, he took the bolt throw on that side. He got my Slayers right at the end. But I took most of his Graveguard down and most of his bats. He had all these bats he was like bringing down. But it's just wounds. Like at the end of the day, I was trying to throw everything I can into the bats to try and get the combat res. But yeah, it was sort of like he was on my flank, I was on his flank. Like it was one of those sort of muddied sort of combats. But yeah, by the end of it, funnily enough, my units that did absolutely nothing got onto the objective and outnumbered him. So I got the objective, and we ended up, funnily enough, having a 10-10 draw.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So swung back. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just one of those games of just not thinking about deployment. You're thinking about a generic deployment. You're not thinking about a deployment against how can I deploy against this person.
Yeah.
So that was a good lesson learned right there. It's just these generic deployments you sort of think about in your head. Sometimes you just default to that. But
you got your game plan, but you got to sort of think, if I was using his army, what do I have to do? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
and also just thinking like with each unit as you're deploying it, what am I wanting to do with that unit? Like, what's the goal for that unit? Where is it going to go in this couple of turns?
That's far too many turns ahead for me, Josh, but I get your point. Yep.
Yeah.
But yes.
I don't know if you guys feel the same, but sometimes you feel a bit rushed in the deployment.
Totally.
Like, everyone's trying to get this game off, and it's like, oh, where do you want to put these guys?
Well, in Josh's point, I feel I tried to do that, but then what I found with 6 not playing it that much is then I'm like, oh, but I can't measure anything, and I've got that 12-inch sort of, my Hierophants can only cast 12 inches, and you're sort of like, I have to like, so you end up just like shoving them together, and then the whole thing, So anyway,
doesn't pan out.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cool.
Right, so that's the end of day 1, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there was drinking and beer, and then we went on to day 4. I mean, day 2, whatever it was. Game 4.
Day 2, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that Korean restaurant was nice.
It was a bit like that.
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah, but I was tasting whatever what did I keep calling him Matt. It's not, what's his name? John. What did John end up buying everyone? It was like some weird Korean sweet wine thing we were drinking.
Oh, the soju.
Shops.
Yeah, the soju. Yeah.
Like I swear I could taste blueberry the next day. Like, what is...
It was a good way to cap the day. So shall we go into the second days 2?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So round 4. So I played against Hamish Ritchie with his high elves. Pretty magic heavy list that he had. Although as it turned out, really not the way the spells he got and just the options that he had couldn't hurt me that much, really, in the end. Because Flames of the Phoenix just doesn't do that much against knights, it needs a good few turns to build up the strength, because the armor save just doesn't hurt them very much. I think he had Walls Unmaking, which is where you get rid of a magic item, which is nice. But in the end, the virtues that he couldn't get rid of probably did most of the damage, more so than actual magic items. But yeah, so his list, I think he had an Archmage, a level 1 Sorceress, a couple of Nobles, one with Lawmaster, another with the Gem of Hoth, which makes him like a level 1, I think. So he had a bunch of magic levels. Then he had a unit of Swordmasters and some Spearmen, a unit of, I think it was 7 Silver Helms with the Banner of Illyrian, so he goes through terrain. With, I think, one of the Nobles went in there. Then a couple of units of 10 archers and a bolt thrower, some Illyrian reavers and a chariot. And what was I going to say? Yeah, so what the start of the phrase, because this round I think was a kill the general.
Yes,
wasn't it?
yes, it was.
So I think he was dreading rolling Intrigue at court because he didn't really want to know which general it was going to be. But he actually rolled high enough that he could choose, and he chose the level 1 sorceress because there was a couple of woods near his deployment zone, and he's like, I feel like the level 1 is probably, I can just put her in there, and she should be able to hide from you. That was basically his rationale, rather than making it the Archmage or one of the other nobles that, a bit more sort of need to be more centrally deployed, I suppose. And it kind of worked because I couldn't. Yeah, she hid in that forest, and I could never catch her. But it was, this was a game where I just felt there was no reason not to just sort of run across the board as quickly as I could towards his lines, especially the high elf infantry and the sword masters. If I can charge them, then kill the front rank. They're not going to be able to hurt me. No. The one thing that might have been threatened was the silver helms, but I managed to hit it directly with a trebuchet shot. I managed to take out, I think it was 4. So, but the back rank of the silver helms, I think in turn 1 or 2, was essentially nullified. So that allowed me, that helped that I could just put the questing knight through into the across the archers, and then overrun into the spearmen, and just run through, and then the grails and the errant on the other side managed to hit the archers, and the sword masters managed to hit with the grails, and then the peg side managed to get behind, and then they came in the rear. On the far flank, he had the little chariot going through, and that actually managed to kill a whole bunch of peasants. We were just joking through the game that this chariot was like a peasant murderer, just kept killing. Because I think the bowman took off one wound off the chariot. Then the chariot managed to hit the bowman, take him off the table. I think the trebuchet sort of panicked off the board because of that. And then a unit of yeomen, I think I only had like 2 left at that point because the archers had been taking out a few, hit the flank of the chariot, and then the chariot's crew and the horse just killed them. I was like, oh, okay.
So where's the horse?
And then I think at the end of the game, I think the second unit of yeomen managed to charge the chariot, and I think they managed to just pip the final wound off the chariot, so they finally got the revenge for the peasants. But because I managed to take out all the infantry and these central characters, I did manage to win. I think it was 20-0 in my favor. But just that sorceress though, I couldn't get her. Like at the end of the game, it was just like because there was 2 forests next to each other. She'd gone from one forest sort of to the other one, and then back again a couple of times. And by the end, I had like the peg knight sitting right at the border, and then 2 other units of knights just trying to block lines of sight. The game finished. I was like, damn it, she's managed to evade me. But it was a fairly good result for me.
Decisive,
And
you were going pretty good by then. Game 4, you knew you were up there in the standings a bit then.
Not necessarily. Not like because I'd won game 3.
I didn't realize you lost 20-0.
Yeah, I lost 20-0 in game 3, which meant I felt like, oh, okay, I'm probably not going to do anything. If you lose 20-0 in a tournament, it's it's pretty hard to come back from that. So I felt like, okay, I sort of evened that result with the game 4. I actually was playing at a different mindset too. Like when I was playing game 3, like it was almost like I was putting too much pressure on myself, almost just to win. So when I went into the second day, I was just like, I'll just have some fun and just play some games, which is probably the best way to approach it, really. Anyway.
Yeah, best mentality.
Yeah. No, well, my game 4 was the ones I hate the most, which is vampires. And look, there's probably not a heap to say on this game because it was. I don't know if you guys feel like if you play vampires where they are raising a lot of stuff, it ends up being not really a game. Like I don't know what else. Well, I guess in my point, I don't know what to do, and nothing against him, like the opponent, like Scott, he was great. To be honest, this is the type of matchup that obviously we're not going to solve it here, but that I need to learn how to play against because it just knocks me out. As soon as I know I'm playing a vamp, it's probably from Darius, at the club. He's just so good at Like he's just destroyed in 8th edition. He's just destroyed my will to live playing against his zombies and stuff. So this, but this was the Sylvania list, which ends up with those 3 tombstones that get scattered around, and he can cast. They automatically go off on a 3, and they can also do a D6 raise or whatever as well.
Right. Skeletons everywhere.
They were just everywhere, and like I can't get through them. Like there's nothing I can do. Like in terms of my chariots, my horsemen, even your Sharpie, they're just getting blocked up by these heaps of raising stuff. And I was like umming and ahhing what to do. Like I was trying to. The only thing I thought I could take out was with my catapult was his. I think he had a small unit of whatever they are. Like guys on horses, but knights. But I just kept missing them or just scattering off. And so at the end of the day, like there wasn't a lot dead. Like up until near the end of the game. But for the first 2 turns, it was just like, bashing into stuff, killing things, him raising them back, me raising a few more, but never as much as him because he can raise just so much more. And then what happened? I eventually, I did start just throwing stuff forward just to try to take things out. And I mean, there wasn't anything I couldn't take enough to get his big units because he had he had the Grave Guard and another unit of something else. I can't remember. I don't even know the list. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me. But so it ended up though. What we did do is just it was going to be, I don't know, so much a tabling, but we weren't going to finish turn 6. So we didn't do it on the record. We just did charge my Tomb Guard into his Grave Guard just to do the general off just for fun, because in the event his vampire guy killed my Tomb King, then I was hoping I could do the Tomb King revenge on his vampire just for fun. But we both ended up, what did I end up doing? I ended up saving, like he ended up with 4 wounds or something on my Tomb King, and I saved one of them, so he didn't die. So I was like, oh damn it! So I couldn't even kill myself good enough. That's how bad I play. I had some friends come around because one of my mates used to play as well, and he's got a young son. He's probably, I don't know, he's in year 6 or something. And I was like, I'll bring him along and get him, see what real armies look like on the table. And then he's turned up right when I'm pulling all these models off the table, just going, yes, I am dying a lot. That's, but but I don't I really don't know what to do about those type of games. Like, I just don't know. The only thing I was thinking of just low percent. I guess my thing is how tough would if that vampire, I can't remember what it was. I don't know if you know his list. His vampire general dude would have been, because sometimes I think, did I not play aggressive enough in the sense of try put both scorpions near him, or don't even entomb them, maybe just put them right up wherever he deployed that unit, both of them there, and try and push through. If he does raise some skeletons, maybe send my horses or chariots with them to sort of take out some of that shit, and then send the scorpions into that guy and just try and take him out. They've got killing blow, poison, 2 of them. Because I guess I'm finding with this game, like I did it with the next game, which I'll tell you in a minute, but it seems a little easier, if that's the right word, to snipe a character in combat. You know what I mean? Like if you can get in there, you can just kill the dude. Because all the other units, there's just not the volume of attacks back at your guy. So something like a scorpion could probably still survive a round, and then you go again. But I didn't do that. And then the other thing I didn't do is I was thinking maybe I should just been 2 shots the catapult on that dude's head for 4 turns and hopefully roll a hit and him fail a thing. But I don't know. I was lost on that game, and I still don't know what the right play was to do. I don't know if you guys have thoughts, but
yeah.
Anyway, so I went down 14-6, I think.
Yeah, I find with my vamps when I play them as well, I don't know, like you probably have a very similar mentality, Colin. It's just you get so protective of your lords because you don't want to crumble, that people coming to attack you, it's actually, a lot of the time it can frazzle you or you back off or you make a mistake. People sometimes get so hesitant about coming Well, I know I do sometimes against that vampire because you're like,
It's
oh,
usually the
scary.
killiest thing in the game, generally. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Well,
exactly.
that's yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can't remember.
But the whole
Mm,
it's built around that, isn't
mm.
it? Like you take the vamp out, it's sort of all over.
And they're lower
So
leadership, like, they're
yeah,
worse than the Tomb Kings for crumbling, probably. So yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. I need to psychologically change this if I'm gonna keep well, I will keep playing, but, like, if I wanna eventually get to the point where I'm not worried about different armies, like, this is the army I need to be honest, I was thinking maybe I just need to go buy one and learn how to play them, and then I'll know how to beat them as well.
uh,
Anyway. Oh,
yeah.
sorry, one point.
Um,
The only thing is, and Scott was fine, he was great, he was really quick, player, and he was just using, like, dice and stuff to go quick on, like, numbers of raised and how long his units were and stuff. But the
yeah.
flip side to that is I was thinking to myself, I don't know, like, maybe that's my just because I don't like vamps, I'm like, shouldn't you know, maybe the rules in tournaments should be you have to actually have all the figures on the board, you know, because otherwise if you don't have them, you can't raise them. That's what I was thinking. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that is, yeah. Like I've got a big box of zombies that I bring. I sometimes will do that. During my magic phase, I'll put the
Yeah, that's
dice
what he was
out,
doing.
and then
Yeah,
during his movement phase, I'll swap it out with my
yeah.
zombies, just to speed up the game, I suppose. Like, but yeah, I would have thought you kind of you would need the models
And
because
I don't think this came up in our game, but I did notice on some of the vampire lists, like the skeleton units and stuff, they're capped. Like it's 10 to 30 or whatever in terms of does that mean
yeah.
you can raise above that still?
I'm not too sure in
Mm.
sixth,
Anyway,
but there are caps for raising in the later
yeah,
editions.
okay. Nah, cool.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah, that was my game 4.
yeah. Yeah, I suppose that leaves me, doesn't it? So yeah, rocked up on Sunday. Was playing Fury. Um, I've only played him, I think, once before. Really nice guy. Obviously, huge in with Legions. Has been around for a very long time. But yeah, unfortunately, he had a few indulged in a few too many ales and rocked up a bit worse for wear a couple of minutes late. I didn't care about that at all. It was just funny because I think he had that mentality. It's like, you have a big night and then you're just like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, let's just go. Like he didn't care about the game, and it was quite fun to play against him because he's sort of like I explained I'm pretty new to the scene. He was sort of like helping me out with the whole thing. So it was a real fun game. Probably yeah. Again, my deployment wasn't bad, but I need to sort of make a few finer adjustments. With my Thunderers and my Rangers, I'm just deploying them in like a little block. I'm not maximizing their shooting
Yeah,
potential.
yeah, I was doing that. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so instead of doing like a long line,
Mm.
especially with mine, I can't move and shoot. So if I do move, you're losing a full turn of shooting. So that was probably my biggest thing with deployment this game. It's just these little things. You're going from 5 shots to 10 shots. It's probably not a huge deal, but it can be. 3 or 4 more
Mm.
dead models by the time they get across the
Yeah.
board to you. So yeah, I deployed in my usual sort of Castle way. Had pretty good line of sight. Fury had this huge block of probably the same he had against you,
Yeah,
Fallon.
same army. Yeah.
Huge block of 40 odd bloody
They're just clan rats though,
rats
weren't
with
they? Yeah. Yeah.
just clan rats with
The bell.
the bell. Probably my biggest downfall is I did not account for fear from that unit. He had a unit of plague monks. He had a unit of plague priests. He had just some
All the weapons shit and stuff
slaves.
hanging around. Yeah,
Yeah. He
yeah,
had bits and
yeah.
pieces. But yeah, it's quite funny this game, like you were talking before. This was that game where I was just like, yep, I got this for 4 turns, and then it swung back real hard. I'm just like, what happened? Um, So yeah, just shooting from the start was just going great. Probably this is probably something that's quite a tactical point, and Fury said that as well. He goes, it's funny how many people attack his plague priests, his plague monks, and they just leave this gigantic block of rats, and they're just like, oh, they're just clan rats. Who cares? So it's almost like, you got all these little toys here and there, and they're your threats. You're taking them out, and you don't perceive this big block of just almost this shit block. You're just like, oh, whatever. But yeah, it hurt. It hurt me later on. So I'm concentrating my fire. I was going pretty good with all my shooting. Guessed ranges pretty well. The gyro was just going to town with its strength 3. That's probably where it comes really good with that template. You're just putting it in these blocks, and you're against rats.
Yeah.
You're taking off sort of 7 or 8 each time at least. I was concentrating on the monks and the priests, and I got rid of them before they even got to me. So he was effectively just left with this gigantic block. He had a weapons team. I took that out. Yeah, so I was pretty chuffed with where I was at. I'm like, oh, look, I was set up for a charge in a way that basically I was comfortable, and I thought I was going to get a counter charge, but obviously that didn't pan out the way I was hoping. So basically, what's happened, and probably with my big downfall was he got off, and I'm very anti-magic. And I don't know how many times in a row it was, but he was rolling quite poor at the start. Bit unfortunate, but then he just started rolling all these 13s, which
He
is
was
like
doing
obviously scape and
13s
irresistible
on
force.
my game too, twice. I was like, yeah.
So yeah, it's bloody, what was it? Plague just started bouncing around.
God.
I think he got 4 off in a row, and it's just like 8 dwarves here, 8 dwarves there. I'm just like, oh. So these units were getting whittled down, and yeah, I wasn't in the worst spot, but basically I had one Slayer block into his big unit of the clan rats by the end of it, and I just got into a position, and I'm just like, yep, I'll hold him with my Longbeards when my Slayers die, and I had a few Slayers left, and then I'm just going to flank charge with this other Slayer block. And I had another block behind, so my Longbeards and then my Warriors behind that. So I was basically going to take the charge by the Longbeards, and then next turn I'm just going to charge in with all this other stuff and win the day. So that was my plan. Anyway, so I charge in with my Longbeards, and yeah, they didn't go great, but I just wasn't thinking about fear. I literally just, this is where psychology, like you said before, in 8th, it's not a huge thing, and in 6th, it's so big. It's this big mechanic. You just, if you don't think about it, you're destined to lose.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So I ran in with my Longbeard unit, BSB. The other thing I was doing, he had an assassin in there, and I was focusing quite a bit of attacks into this assassin. I took his assassin out, but I just did not put enough attacks into the unit, and just his combat res was just too much. That's probably one thing I didn't account for, and unfortunately, it was an auto break because his causes fear.
Yeah.
So
good.
So they ran. He caught them onto my next unit.
Oh god.
Then my next unit's bloody running, caught them. He's got my general, he's got my BSB, 2 big units. And then my Slayers, it's their turn to have a go, and now I'm out of charge bloody arc, and it was it's just one of these games. So yeah, that was probably another big thing that I've taken away from Castle Assault was my units are so defensive and my characters are so defensive that basically you do need that combat res. And if your characters, I've got my BSB's doing 3 strength 4 attacks, like he's not doing much, and my general's doing 2 strength 4 attacks. I mean, like he's not doing anything really. So that's what really let me down, is like I've got these units, they can absorb a bit of punishment, but you can't win combats unless you get a flank off So yeah, that was a big thing to take away. But the biggest thing was definitely just the fear. Just did not account for psychology. The funny thing was I requested to change my list pretty soon after I submitted it because I played Colin, and I remember panic was such a big thing. So I've changed a unit of warriors over for another unit of Longbeard, so I've got resistance to panic. But then you've got fear and terror coming in as well, and that's another thing you don't have resistance to. So yeah, if you don't account for these things, they really mess your day. So yeah, went down. It was so funny because Kent's Fury was like, it was funny, mate, because you're apologizing the entire time because you're like decimating my units, and it's like I'm thinking in my head, mate, what are you apologizing for? I'm just about to roll you. So yeah, it was just I was just rolling like a demon with my shooting, and I'm just like, yeah, I got this, and yeah, no, I did not have that at all.
That's funny.
So I went down. Look, I can't remember. It was like a 15-5 or something. So yeah, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. There was a lot of I did kill quite a bit, but he got my general, and obviously those banners are
yeah,
all
the
banners,
yeah,
the banners add up.
Yeah,
and you only get them in combat though, isn't it? If you shoot a unit off and they how do you get the banners in a 6? Can't remember.
Yeah, it's
like
in
if
combat.
yeah, it's in combat. Yeah, so it's not if you shoot a unit off and they run off, you don't get it.
No.
Yeah,
No,
nah. He got him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in combat.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, cool. Well, not cool for you, but yeah, it's
all learning, isn't
it's
it?
funny
Like,
though.
it's,
That unit is big, but in my game, I just remember I should have gone in with the Tomb Guard into that unit because I don't fear him, and I would have. I must have hit it down a little bit with the catapults and stuff, but like I was worried about it too much, and I didn't go in because I'm thinking in 8th I would never go near one of those things.
Yeah, just get bogged down.
Yeah. But anyway, funny. Cool. Last round. Let's get. So, yeah, it does take a while to get through these games, doesn't it?
It does.
It's good though. Just for people knowing, we're recording this quite late, so late for me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep, definitely. So yes, knock over the final round. Hey. What was mine against? Oh, that's right. So it was against Daryl Kernan.
Cool. He had the chaos list. That was a pretty nasty list, wasn't it?
It was a corn.
It wasn't.
It was a corn demon list. Yeah.
Right.
I guess it had a demon.
Not a lot of figures on it. Is that one?
Yeah, pretty small.
Mm.
Pretty small. Like because he had 2 big blocks of bloodletters, like one of 24 or 25, the other one like 16. Then a prince, and then like a unit of blood crushers and a chariot, and some flash hounds.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
But they're all frenzied, and that's
yes.
That's the thing that.
And you're good at this.
Yeah, I enjoy playing in frenzied armies because I have enough options to move things around against their will. Which is what I was able to do because we sort of had a big impassable piece of terrain right in the middle of the board, and he put the prince and the blood crushers on one side and the bloodletters and the chariot and then the hounds on the other side. And I essentially had the pegs and one yeoman, and the questing and the realm were sort of centrally, but they end up going to that side across from the prince and the blood crushers, and then I had the grails opposite the bloodletters, and then the bowman and the treb and the other errant, right in the far corner, sort of across from the hounds. He moved up pretty. So he went first. He moved up pretty aggressively, and it actually allowed me to then attempt some redirection, where I essentially put my Pegasi in front of his prince, angled sort of 45, and then I had the yeoman in front of the blood crushers, and then sort of 45, and they ended up but those angles meant that they actually the prince and the blood crushers will be running past each other, sort of
crisscross.
Crisscrossing, and across the lines of my charger, so I'd be getting flanks and that type of thing. And then I put the other unit of yeoman in front of the bloodletters and the chariot, and there was actually a forest right behind the yeoman. which was bad news for the chariot because it just essentially meant that the chariot would have to charge the yeoman and then overrun straight into the forest, and that was essentially the end of the chariot because it had one d6 rank 6 hits, took out a couple of wounds, and then the second load of d6 rank 6 hits in the forest. When he tried to charge out of the forest again, it just didn't survive. But yeah, what happened with the redirection though, with the Peg Knights and the Yeoman is the Blood Crushers went straight through the Yeoman, but the Prince hitting the Peg Knights actually completely fluffed his attacks. So he had 6 attacks re-rolling to hit. He did 1 wound, and so the combat was drawn. Which was very unexpected. But what that meant was that then, because the Peg Knights were actually staying there, the Blood Crushers actually went straight into the rear of them.
Oh, God.
Which sounds bad, but actually, when I was sitting there looking at that happen, I was like, oh, this actually has worked out extremely fortuitously, because the Blood Crushers coming so far across and then closing the door into the Peg Knights meant that I now had a flank charge with the questing, and a rear charge with the Realm Knights into the Blood Crushers. So those two essentially went in. I think I actually had an interesting moment there where there was actually a challenge. So my Lord has to do 2 challenges, and there was a BSB in the Blood Crushers, and we didn't know what order to strike. Because they had essentially overrun charging into the back of the pegs, and then I charged him, so it was the same combat turn where we were both considered charging. So I was kind of like, I think I just asked Kendall, what do we do here? And he's like, oh, just do it at the same time, just do it simultaneously. Which I was like, I'm pretty sure in 6th edition, like, you never have simultaneous attacks.
I think you roll off or something.
Well, what happens? I've looked it up since, and what happens is, they've got a little diagram. I think I found it in the 2002 annual, where essentially, in this situation, the Blood Crushers would have attacked first against the Peg Knights and been considered charging. Then my Knights would have attacked the Blood Crushers, and then if the Blood Crushers were able to strike back at my Knights, then they would have been able to strike back if there were any surviving, but not considered charging, so no charge bonuses in that regard. So it's sort of like you do it in the order that they charged, but they can only strike the thing that they charged in that moment,
Gotcha.
They've got a little diagram, which is probably better than trying to describe it, really. But so what happened was, because we played as simultaneous, I was like, yeah, fine. If that's what Tio said, let's just do that. I don't care. I can't bother to look up stuff.
Especially when it's in an annual, so although that app might have it.
I was not gonna. I just prefer to just, if the rule sort of, if it makes sense, if it's gonna help the game flow, I'd rather not spend too much time trying to clarify things and just like, this is sort of, it's plausible, so let's just play. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
So ended up happening was, the Lord killed this BSB. His BSB killed my Lord. We've killed each other in the challenge immediately. But then all the other combat res from my Knights going in the rear, and the standards and the warband and everything else meant that I did end up winning that combat by like 8 or 9. And so the remaining Blood Crushers sort of could disappear, and then he rolled an 11 for the Prince on the break test, which meant the Prince popped anyway. Which actually had happened. So he played Angus in the round 4. Daryl had Angus's Bretonnians, and the same thing had happened in that game, where his Prince, he rolled an 11 on the Prince's break test, and the Prince popped in that one too. Poor Daryl. So that put me in a good position. Then the Bloodletters, because I've been able to redirect half of them with the Yeoman, the smaller unit I was able to charge with the Peg Knights. Sorry, not the Peg Knights, the Grail Knights, and was able to go through that unit in a turn. And then by the end, I think that was really the end of the game. Really, nothing much happened. So I ended up winning that game 20-0 as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's a good day too.
Yeah. But it's just because I think my armies does well against that kind of situation where it's a very hard hitting army to play against the Khorne demons, but because they're frenzied, it just makes it easy to manipulate. And then on the charge, the Bretonnians
you got
can
such
hit just as hard, and I've got so much combat res as well.
Yeah. And long charges. So like if an army finds themselves slightly out of kilter, which is what you're doing with the frenzy, then you can take advantage of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Especially if I can maneuver them so that I'm hitting a flank or something like that.
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah.
Because if I hit the blood crushes in the front, actually probably could have hurt me quite badly in return. But being able to go in the side, it helps a lot. Or going in with 2 units at once. Which is why.
Because that's generally what you try to do a lot, don't you? To take a big unit out, do you?
Yeah, I think
generally to go.
I try to go two at once in those situations. Although I must admit, in 6th edition, it's less of an important thing. Like in 8th edition, it was super critical to get double charging.
Yeah, because they're hordes and stuff.
Because there was huge units, there was always supporting attacks, step up, everything meant that you had to get a lot of attacks in to do it. In 6th edition, the 3 main blocks of lances I've got with the growls by themselves, or the 2 other blocks with the character in it. By themselves, they're pretty good at taking out a unit of 3 deep infantry, but it's more like the elite things, or when you've got some nasty characters in there, or in a situation against you, Colin, where I was worried that it was undead and I was going to get flank charged if I didn't kill everyone.
I should have actually had a banner. Hey, should have put a banner on
if
those.
You'd had a banner. See, I told you to get rid of that banner, so I can only take credit for my sabotage of your list.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
Oh dear. So that was the game. Yeah. So, how'd you go in your last round?
Well, I played Hamish. We played a lot of the same opponents, Josh. Yeah, I played Hamish, which is wood elves, bloody high elves. The thing I was worried about this one was no, you're right. Just the number of dispel dice he has.
Hearing that you play the same one. Right.
It shocked you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he had 9 dispel dice or something. So I was like, initially, I'm like, oh crap. I was a bit worried. I'm just like, I'm not going to get this casket off and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think I'm still in. I think high elves are so good in 8th edition, but I don't know. Are they not as good in? Is elves not as good in 6? Because Anyway, the game. I was sort of castled in one side. The good thing is I learnt in this game, 5 games in, that my chariot's a fast cav, and that would have helped in a couple of other games. But anyway, so thanks, Hamish. But it makes them way more useful. So anyway, So anyway, so that was good. But I had them on one flank, and then sort of there was a building in the middle of my deployment zone, so I was sort of like, peppered over to the right hand side of that. Just he had to come to me. It's funny. I think a lot of people don't realize the amount of shooting I can put out, like with double shots of a lot of things. And so, and against toughness 3 elves, my view was I moved up a little bit just because he had his bolt throw and 2 archer units sort of off the line a little bit. So my first turn was a little bit of a move up, and then just I thought shooting's going to have to do it because he's going to dispel my casket. But what ended up happening was, I did get catapults off. He ended up like you, Josh, but twice this happened. He had 3 dice dispel on my casket and rolled double ones. So his whole shooting went to either panics or the casket. And then his knights and like the other units got a little bit whittled down. And then by turn 3 or 4, and plus there was a forest and a building on his side, and he sort of jammed himself in with his infantry blocks, so he couldn't get all of them through at once. And so I was able to just, I guess, focus fire and or eventually get into combat with just 1 or 2 of them. And so that ended up being 18-2. He just it was one of those games where I was doing the apologizing of it with how bad his rolling was going on, at least the 2 dispels. But then I was my casket was going off. So that was a good way to end the day. Finally getting a good win. That was pretty much it. And that was my turn. That was game 5 for me.
Game 5. All right. I suppose that leaves me. So I played Richard with his ogres. Got a talking to Richard a bit at the start. He's pretty new. I think he was very similar experience to me. He's sort of maybe 1 or 2 odd games before the tournament. Funnily enough, I was a little bit stumped on how to play against him. He had a lot of small units and a couple of kitted up bigger characters in a unit. So I sort of thought, well, he's got low leadership. So I was trying to go down that panic route, just try and force panic tests. The only problem, which I found really hard, is he had reroll panic from his general, his BSB, or there was some item that he could reroll panic tests. And that just killed me. I think he was passing them left, right, and center. So sort of forcing those panic tests just wasn't really viable. The other thing, as with dwarves at the moment, it's really killing me is that 6-inch charge. Just and lack of maneuverability, I suppose. Ogres, I think they move 6. So you do, they come pretty quick at ya, and then they can also get away from you when they need to as well. So I found that was a little bit hard to deal with. So he was basically, he deployed pretty long. I did my usual little sit back and shoot, wait till you come to me, just jump into combat. My shooting for this, I wasn't rolling too good. I don't like blaming that. It wasn't that really, but I just, misfires with when you need it. I got a grudge thrower, threw a rock right in his general's head. Strength 8, rolled a 1. I'm just like, oh, here we go.
One of those.
Yeah, one of those sort of things. The other thing I stuffed up with as well, so I got one of his units with, this is before that as well, one of his big units, and it's D6 wounds for the template, for the strength 4 hit, not under the center, so it's D6 for everything. And then there was a discussion about, is it that or the center? And then I was trying to find Kendall, I couldn't actually find him.
That came up in mine too, and apparently it's D6 everywhere.
D6 everywhere.
Yeah, it is,
awesome.
yeah. So I couldn't find Kendall, even though he was playing directly behind me, literally. So he's right behind me, and I'm going off asking all these other people, and everybody asked 4 people, and they all said, "Nah, it's only the center."
What?
So that's going like the 8th edition rule.
Yeah, it would be.
So it was just a mix up. So it wasn't a big swing. It's not like that cost me the game, but obviously there would have been a few more wounds here and there. But yeah, by the end of it, he just had quite a bit of shooting, and just got in a few combats that I couldn't win, just again because he charged in, and I didn't have that combat ability against his little Lord unit.
Get the combat res up.
So I lost 2 of my big units. I did quite a bit of damage in return, but not enough. And I ended up going down. I can't even remember it. It might have been like a 7-13. I think it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. It's just that maneuverability just killed me. Like I had a Slay unit that, it could have done well, but it was just too far away. And then, you march up, and then by the time you march up and he's already marched out of your 6-inch range, and you just, it's just one of those things with dwarves. It's very hard. You come from, 8th edition and 9th age where you got the roll of the dice. You always got that chance of getting in. Where else with 6, it's very, it's and the other thing as well, which kills me, is dwarves are so lacking maneuverability, but after a combat, you can't reform. It just makes it so much harder. I just find you're very static. So I've coming out of that whole schmozzle of the last few games, I got quite a good, pointers. So yeah, I think I can make a good list from dwarves still. But yeah, we'll see how that goes in the future.
No, sounds good, man. So how did everyone end up then? So do you know what you got overall? It was like 30 something points, 30s?
Mid-30s. Yeah, mid-30s.
And I was like smack bang in the middle at 50, 50 out of 100, which I was quite happy with considering 2 wins out of 3. And knowing that, I reckon that third game, I wouldn't say I lost it. I mean, I lost my horror from my stupidity, but I felt like if I'd just known that rule and the chariot rule, I may have squeezed another win in somewhere. So I was like, oh, okay, that's not too bad for playing 2 games, but yeah, it is what it is. But then, of course, Josh just takes out nearly everything.
No, I think I got, what was it, 71, I think?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's you were second, weren't you?
Yeah, I came second. I was sort of surprised.
And then first in painting.
Yes. Well, I had to choose one. I had to choose one.
Yeah, exactly.
Patty was definitely worthy of getting it because her little Tomb King army was incredible.
That's crazy.
As well.
Yeah.
She makes those models as well, doesn't she?
Yeah, she
sculpts.
digitally designed them.
And
printed them off.
Just say
that's insane.
Listeners, a girl called Patty had a I can't pronounce the name, but it's basically a Tomb King giant, bone giant list. I think 5 was it? 5 bone giants in it, but they're all like Andrew said, digitally sculpted herself in Blender and then obviously printed and painted and stuff. So
it's
pretty cool.
It is. Josh's army is beautiful. There's no detail that it's
an awesome army.
Is that is that your growls? They got the little
you've done all these little swirly things everywhere. How long did that take?
It took
2 weeks per model.
It would have been. I think that was a 4 or 5 month process getting those guys done. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.
That's really good. Hey, look, we'll get our socials up at some point, and we'll put some of those pictures up so people can see what we actually play with at some point. That'll be cool. Oh, well, that was our castle. So I think the good thing, not only did it help me and Andrew learn 6 and, as I said, start knowing the rules a bit more, I think it got us out of I think we've found something here that's going to keep us busy, at least to the old world. And then it's obviously kicked the podcast up as well. So we won't be able to play with Josh as much, but I'm assuming, we will at tournaments when we can get to them. So
if you guys can, if there's a CanCon that happens, I'll definitely be there.
Yeah, that's actually potentially more. I've been telling people, no, I can't do CanCon because usually it's my oldest daughter's birthday, but just the way it falls now, hers is actually the week before. Because hers is the 22nd, and I think the 26th is the Friday, is it?
Yeah, it's a Friday,
So I think Mia's birthday is basically probably going to be on the weekend before. So now I'm like, might be a potential. If it goes ahead, they don't actually have an organizer yet.
Yes, hopefully Canberra is able to organise it.
Yeah. That'd be cool. Well, hey man, this one's been going on for a bit, so we might wrap it up in a minute. Yeah, but it's been good. And I know, Josh, you were on another podcast doing a Castle Assault wrap up, so you've probably over Castle Assault.
Keen to play some new games.
That's all good. I think usually we'll do. We'll catch everyone up next episode. I don't know when it is, but hopefully we'll try to get out some every couple of weeks. Probably shorter most of the time, but obviously with these type of things or army book reviews, they're probably going to drag on a bit. But I think people want to hear that. Everyone, if they're like me, we are starved for fantasy content at the moment. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Cool. Look, we did get, by the time this goes out, we definitely have an oldworldfanatics@gmail.com email address. So if people want to send in any, questions, topics, suggestions, stuff like that. And we do have a Twitter and an Instagram at the moment. But the Twitter, for some, I didn't realize this, but Twitter's has a limit on the number of characters so our Twitter is Old World Fanatic, and all our other stuff is Old World Fanatics with an S. So, whatever. I'm at Itchy Nuisance on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So all my previous YouTube videos are out there, and I have posted a bunch of stuff on Instagram as well. If people want to get in contact with me, I think Josh and Andrew said they're not on socials at the moment. So, but that's
really.
cool.
No,
all good.
Not publicly available socials anyway.
Nah, it's all good.
Nah.
Yeah, for now anyway. Yeah.
No worries. Oh well, that was really good, man. Hopefully, thanks for that. I enjoyed that, gents.
Yeah,
Thanks for your staying up and going through it.
Was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it
we'll
was.
do it again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, sounds good.
Very insightful.
I'll get this out and hopefully people listen to it.
Yeah, we can definitely start hitting some of that old world stuff in the next few episodes.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, guys, I'll let you get back to your bed soon, and we'll chat in a few weeks.
Well, flat lines. Oh, now, okay, it's squiggly now.
Okay, good. Because sometimes if someone's plugged in wrong, just make sure everyone sees everyone's, because if not, you end up recording the whole thing and going, oh, shit, someone's microphone wasn't...
I can't see your squiggly line, Colin.
Oh, you can't? I can see mine.
I can see Colin's, but I can't see mine.
Okay, maybe it's hit and miss. I have no idea. I can see all of them, so I think that means it's okay. Fingers crossed. Otherwise, we're missing a whole person. So who knows?